Good morning. And welcome to our neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation. For those of us who are surprisingly here this morning live in our sanctuary, and to those of us who have decided to stay home on Zoom today. My name is Kurt Thomsen, and I will be your service weaver this morning on this surprisingly cold and snowy day. A day that can be very meditative at this when you're inside looking out at the beautiful snow. We're joined today by our music director, Susanne Maziarz, and she'll be accompanied by Tiago and Tony Rapoport. And our very special guest who has decided to stay on Zoom is Reverend Dr. Cheri DiNovo, who we'll be learning more about later. Sorry. We here at Neighborhood have been a welcoming community since 2008. For those of you who are new here, a very special welcome. If you want to learn more about us, please fill out a newcomer form that you'll find in the backs of your chairs, and then put them in the offering basket when we come to our offering time. We ask that you please be aware of certain things here at Neighborhood. We have a mask required section to your right, and then if you want to get up and move around, we have an activities table over there to your left. And our services can be up to about 90 minutes. So feel free to stand up, move around, and like I said, use the activity table. And we also have a wiggle room to the back there with a comfy couch and some toys to play with as well. And also, sorry, I'm just worried about a personal friend that's just a little distracted right now, sorry. Also, if you can, please turn off any mobile devices or put them on silent unless you need them for accessing the service. We welcome all of you here to our Unitarian Universalist congregation today, and we hope you can take whatever spiritual things and put them into your heart and your soul, if you can, and use them for your growth and to help others grow. And now, if you would, please, it's a time to look around and say hello to your friends and family and any new faces that you may not have found before. And for those on Zoom, just unmute yourselves and say hello. And then at the end, just for those here, just wave to the camera, and we'll have a song to bring us back.
We welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, whomever you love, we welcome you.
I am a Danish and German settler living on stolen land. The Mississaugas of the Credit are the treaty holders of this land, joined by people who have this land as traditional land, the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and more recently by the Métis and Inuit peoples. We must learn to treasure this land and no longer poison it. Learn from the indigenous peoples who have much wisdom of what to do with this land. And we must work to reconciliate with them and help heal the scars that we settlers have caused. These are only words, but words can spark action. We must take the words and kindle them into a flame that brightens for our future. This is our last week in our study of our fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in our congregations and society at large. Reverend Cheri is going to be speaking about hope based on her own history and how to accomplish our justice aims. I've always felt that hope is an active process. Sometimes when we go, oh, I hope this is going to happen, or I hope this is going to show up, or I hope I don't do this, that's passive. And we're just giving everything to chance, just putting our hopes out in the wind and hoping that it will blow whichever way. But if we want action to occur, we must do something with our hope and make hope happen for others. Also, at the same time, we need to be careful not to have too much hope without reality. I remember when I was getting eye surgery a few years ago, hoping to get the eyesight I used to have, I was so hoping, with unfettered hope, that the surgery was going to work. Within a year, my eyesight would totally improve. Unfortunately, I didn't foresee the complications from surgery. And now that when I lost my sight, I was quite angry at the situation for some time, and I was totally unprepared for what was to come. So it was a lesson that I had to relearn. As long as we hope actively It's like the difference between effort and try. We try on a coat, or we try a glass of wine. These things we don't need to commit to. We can give up that coat. We don't have to drink the rest of the wine. But when we're putting effort into something, that requires commitment. And if we hope with effort, we'll accomplish our aims.
Kurt, could we light the chalice now?
Oh. Sorry. I'm sorry. I totally forgot. And now I would like to, if we would, please read with me our invocation, which will be projected on the screen. Let us cast a circle of a sacred space here. Let us cast a circle of a cherished space here. A space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life. A life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families. And now I would like to invite Emily Harris McLeod and Hope Temple and their family to please come and light our chalice. They'll be lighting our chalice from our children's lantern, which we use to honor the children who are in our lives and the children who are of our youth. And now I'll pass it over to our trio for our centering music.
Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to see everybody. As the gathering music, just before we started, Tiago and I played a piece by Osvaldo Lacerda, who's a Brazilian composer. He wrote the music about 40 years ago. A composer who's new to me, so a big thanks to Tiago for introducing me to this wonderful music. And now, along with Susanne, we're going to play a movement by Mozart. This was written about 240 years ago, and it's for a very unusual combination of instruments, as you can see, viola, clarinet, and piano. Mozart loved to play the viola himself, and he undoubtedly played it for fun with his friends. And it's got a nickname, the Kegelstadt Trio, which means the trio of the pool hall. And probably had friends who they usually would play billiards together, but sometimes they would play music, and he might have written this for those group of friends. We don't really know. Remembered, I also intended to tell you that a little later, Tiago and I will be playing another piece. This is by Rebecca Clark, who's an English composer who wrote about 100 years ago, and her music varies between sort of 19th century style romantic music and music of the sort of the pre-Raphaelite time of English art, if you're familiar with that, is sort of harkening back to a much earlier period. And I think this piece is a kind of a solemn, solemn sort of ritualistic kind of piece, which I hope you'll enjoy. It's called Prelude. It's for later.
Wow. Tony, Susanne, Tiago, thank you very much. Again, like I said, that's beautiful. Again, like I said, we're in our fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. And our guest, Cheri, who is on Zoom, will be discussing hope from her personal experiences and how to achieve any of our justice aims. And and Sally had pointed out, our Reverend Sally, who's not here today, pointed out this George William Frederick Hegel quote that is very cautionary, and I think it's very relevant. Lectures on the Philosophy of History by George William Frederick Hegel. Leaders and statesmen and peoples are referenced to and regards to the lessons of historical experience. But experience in history teaches us that rulers and nations never learn from experience in history and never act upon the lessons that they show. So this is why we, the people, must act and not rely on our leaders to do things for us. And you'll notice that someone like Cheri, when she talks later, that she is a person who knows how to act and knows how to bring about change, because only each and every one of us can bring about the change in our own lives. If we want someone else to do it, not going to happen. And now, please rise if you are willing for opening song.
Morning, everyone. We're going to sing the hymn of the month from our new hymnal, Sing Out Love. This song's called This Boat. You're welcome to join me on the chorus, which is what it starts with. The verses have a little tricky bits in them, so you can try or just listen, up to you. This boat is steady, this boat is sure. When you're ready, climb aboard. When you're ready, grab and load. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore. We all know hardship, we all know pain, but nothing ventured means nothing gained, and every rainbow needs the rain. You're not alone, try again. This boat is steady, this boat is sure. When you're ready, climb aboard. When you're ready, grab and load. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore. Even though you've been tempest-tossed, even though you feel that all is lost, you've heard the thunder roar. Have a look at heaven's storm. If you're sinking like a stone, this boat will carry you home. This boat is steady, this boat is sure. When you're ready, climb aboard. Ready, grab and load. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore. In this boat, there's nothing we can't do together, no matter the weather. No matter that the charts are tossed, we will navigate by our stars. is steady, this boat is sure. When you're ready, climb aboard. When you're ready, grab and oar. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore. This boat is steady, this boat is sure. When you're ready, climb aboard. When you're ready, grab and oar. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore. This boat will carry us to the farthest shore.
So why don't we have our young and young at heart get in a boat right now and head off to a little beach? And I think Sana, the man, will explain why we're going to a beach right now. Right, Sana?
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be reading a story to you all today. If anyone would like to come and have a seat up here, you're welcome to, but no pressure. And that's for you all as well. As I sit on my fly agaric, we will... okay, so this... Oh, you're coming! Oh, goody, goody! No cushion, sorry. All right, so this story is an adaptation of a story called The Star Thrower, which is from a 26-page essay of the same name by 20th century American anthropologist, educator, and philosopher Loren Eiseley, originally published in 1969. This version was adapted by our very own Reverend Sally, and I'm grateful to her for offering me the opportunity to share it with you all. Let's see if I can get through it without choking. Okay. Once upon a time, there lived a young man who made a habit of going for a walk every morning along the beach where he lived. He would look out at the ocean and the rocky shoreline and think deep thoughts. One day on his walk, he saw something odd in the sand ahead of him. It looked like a starfish. And as he looked further and further down the shore, he saw that there were hundreds, thousands, millions of starfish all washed up on the beach. He thought, oh, how terrible. Those starfish might not survive in the hot sun later today, especially if the tide goes out and leaves them all here. He shook his head sadly. Such a shame, he said. I'm only one person. I can't turn the tide or block the sun. If only I could save all these starfish. Suzanne has a starfish for me? Oh, good. So, have you ever seen a starfish up close? Yeah. So, this is a good size one. I grew up in the southern U.S., and in North Carolina, there are itty-bitty ones, too. So, they come in all different sizes, and at different ages, I guess they're different sizes. Have you ever seen a tiny one? A baby starfish? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you can hold that, Mark, thanks. I'm losing my place here, let me see. Okay, he walked a little further down the beach, carefully avoiding stepping on any of the little stars. And he saw another odd thing in the distance. Someone was dancing right at the edge of the water. An old woman was bending and spinning, like she was waltzing with the waves. As he grew closer, he saw that she wasn't dancing. She was bending to carefully lift a starfish, then turning to fling it far, far, far out into the ocean. The old woman saw him and said, "Good morning." The young man said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, the sun is getting hot and the tide is going out. These starfish will die if they stay on the sand." He looked again at the millions and millions of starfish scattered on the sand all up and down along the shoreline. He shook his head again and said, I just don't see the point. There are so many. You cannot possibly make a difference. Oh, I'm getting choked up already. Okay. And the woman nodded her head politely. She looked out along the beach with him, seeing how many stars were still stranded. Then she looked down at the one in her hand, turned, and she threw it far, far, far into the water, where it landed with a splash. It made a difference to that one, she said. Then she bent again, reaching down toward the sand, and continued her dance. The young man paused for a moment, watching her and thinking his deep thoughts. Then slowly he bent to pick up a starfish and joined her. I can't read these without breaking. The end. What do you think of that? Do you think the old woman was crazy?
Yeah,
Why was she crazy?
because there's millions of them and you can't save them all.
Right.
Good to try. What was the last bit? But it's good to try.
Exactly. Awesome. That's it. So that's it for me. Have we got a... Okay, great. Oh, I get the starfish. Thank you. I've got the mic. Do you want me to put it in the stand or give it to you? Here it is.
Uh-oh. I wish I was introducing you in person, but due to circumstances, we have to do this. We have to introduce you over Zoom. But it is my great pleasure to introduce Reverend Dr. Cheri DiNovo, who was one of the first women to sign on to We Demand in 1971, one of the first gay rights movements to go to Parliament Hill. She performed the first same-sex marriage ceremony in Canada in 2001, at MPP for Parkdale-High Park from 2006 to 2017, and also received the Order of Canada. There's a lot more I could have said about Cheri, but if I did that, it would be probably about 12:30 in the afternoon. And after Cheri does her message, it'll be my great pleasure to welcome Gwen Showerty, who will be helping us meditate. Okay, Cheri, I move it over to you.
Thanks so much, Kurt. And I just have to say a few introductory remarks. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you, even though in spirit and not in body. And I performed the first legalized same-sex marriage because I want to honor all of those people who've made commitments to each other, for hundreds of years before it became legal in this country. So that's the difference. And the scene behind me is it's the first Pride in Toronto on Hanlon's Point in 1971, which was the first in Canada, we found out later. And it's the same group, Toronto Gay Action, that then went to Parliament Hill and did the first, presumably, quotes unquote, gay demonstration there. The woman with the long dark hair there is me, moi. In my family, we all age into blonde, that's all I can say. So I was very, very young then. That was my then girlfriend. And another luminary, there's only a couple of us dinosaurs left from that scene, is James Dubrow, who's kind of the guy right behind me. His shoulder is there, and he's kind of looking towards my shoulder. And he is really known in Canada as one of our top crime writers. He was journalist for the Toronto Star for many, many years and has written a bunch of books. And anyway, you can find him on Netflix talking about the Canadian Mafia, just so you know. So I wasn't alone back then. So that was then. But of course, the story of hope doesn't start there for me. I left home at 15 years old. This was not unusual for kids back then who identified as queer. And it was just safer on the streets, quite frankly. And, you know, that's the same story you'll hear from a lot of street kids to this day, that it's literally safer on the streets than at home. So when you see a street kid, know that about them. And so it was back then. We couch surfed, we were street involved and drug involved, most of us, because that's the only way you could make an income at 15 and etc. And even before then, in the story of hope, I want to say, is when I was a little kid, I remember being part of the duck and cover generation. So we think we're on the verge of catastrophe now. I remember thinking I would never grow up, because I was going to Jesse Ketchum's school, still there on Bay Street, and we were all taught to hide under our desks in case of nuclear attack. And even as a little kid, I knew that was ridiculous, right? I mean, I knew that if they were going to attack Toronto, they'd probably hit our school on Bay Street. It would probably be one of the first places they'd aim, because Bay Street, you know? So, I mean, so back then, I'm truly believing that I would never be able to grow up at the Cuban Missile Crisis till today. And not much later than that, probably about the time that this photograph was taken, about 1971, I got involved politically because I remember seeing a CBC documentary on pollution. And I remember thinking there is absolutely no way with our current economic system that we will not destroy the planet. That was 1971, folks, 1971. So there was that then. And I think of the Martin Luther King statement, you know, that the arc of history moves towards progress. May not seem like that right now with Trump, you know, fascism south of the border and all that that entails with the threats to our country, the threats to our people. Rainbow Railroad says this is the first time that they've seen such a huge influx of trans folk coming from the United States. Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. And to paraphrase the long quote that Kurt shared about from Hegel, suffice to say that Hegel said, what we learn from history is that we don't learn from history. So my suggestion is that we learn from history, and that means hope. That means hope, because that same kid that you see in that picture, who was street involved back then, managed to get off the street, managed to do other stuff. But I will kind of fast forward to 2001. And Curtis, I don't know if you can share the picture from the Toronto Star of Paolo and Blanca and the first legalized same-sex marriage. I don't know whether you can do that. But anyway, let me just try on my background. It's not going to be very good here, but I'm going to try adjusting my background so another one here, which is this one. Couldn't get it framed, but badly. But anyway, this was the front page of the Toronto Star back then in 2001, when Paula and Blanca, two women of color, received their marriage certificate in the mail from the Registrar General's office in Thunder Bay. We performed the marriage by bands, which you probably saw some press. You know, MCC in Toronto, Metropolitan Community Church, with my friend Brent, actually did a marriage by bands, but it was never legalized. Never legalized, actually, until 2005. This was legalized at the time. Why? Because of a bit of racism and misogyny, quite frankly, because the band's form just said male, just said bride and groom, not male and female. And when they saw two South American names, one Paula and one Blanca, they thought that Paula was a man's name. So hallelujah, you know, wing and prayer. It was made illegal despite everything. I think, yeah, anyway. Let's just see if there's another background here. I'm on my desktop, which is a little weird today. Let's get that back. Here's the same two people, me in the middle, but the same two people at Pride. We marched in Pride every year after that, Pel and Blanca and friends, to celebrate that first legalized marriage. This last year was my 54th Pride from being at the first, which is now, by the way, commemorated by a plaque, a brass plaque at Hanlon's Point that Olivia Chow unveiled just about a year ago. So you can always, if you go to Hanlon's Point, see that brass plaque of me and my then girlfriend. Suffice to say that a lot happened after that. There was a lot of hoopla around that, a lot of press, as you can imagine. And I was asked to run for political office. Now, I was a young socialist. Now I'm just an old socialist back then. And so I never thought about political office or running for political office. But my then MP at the time, Peggy Nash, invited me to lunch. Didn't know why. And she proposed that maybe I should run provincially at that point. It had been a very safe seat, not ours, for many, many, many years, in fact, decades before that. And so this was a real long shot, but it still took me about 3 months to decide that I would run. And a couple of people in my congregation at that point on Roncesvalles Avenue came to me and shared some wisdom about possibly running, which was very wise, as it turned out in hindsight. One said, well, Cheri, I wouldn't wish that job on my worst enemy, but I think you should run. That was number one. And number two was, Cheri being asked to run for a political party for office is like being asked by the football player to go to the high school prom, the quarterback to go to the high school prom. It sounds very flattering at the time, but then you have to spend the evening with a football player, which I also liked a lot. Suffice all of that, and suffice a really grueling, horrible campaign that you can imagine. And John McGrath Sr. of CBC called it the worst he'd ever seen in political life in Canada. They came at me anonymously by dropping off leaflets at Roman Catholic households. We had a very Roman Catholic neighborhood back then. And that was in 2006, and saying things like I compared Karla Homolka to Jesus Christ, a total fabrication, of course. But also I woke up one day to seeing my picture, the worst picture ever of me in the Toronto Sun, saying drug dealer runs for office in Parkdale-High Park. So every day it was kind of a blow like that. And what was really problematic about that, apart from the obvious effects to myself and well-being, was that we had an evening service at that church that was a lot of street people. It was mainly street people, street-involved people, a lot of 2S LGBTQ people that came to that service, a lot of trans folk who were working in the sex trade. And we had a dinner. It was built around a common dinner. And, I remember thinking that, my story for them as a former street kid was a story of hope. And this was an attack on that hope. That's what hurt. It also hurt because watching what my children went through. We had to keep my son away from all candidates meetings because he would sit there glowering. It hurt them too. So when we see attacks on people running for public office, no matter what party they are, you can think, especially women, the attacks on their persons. And now with social media, it's 100 times worse. So there is that. However, I won. And I kept winning for like 4 other elections. One of the very first bills that I introduced was called Toby's Law. Now, Toby Dancer was our music director, eventually for both services at our church, but initially just for the evening service. Toby had come out and immediately had a breakdown as a trans person, never really presented as a trans person after that out of fear, but that was who she was. and was a fantastic musician. In fact, in her prior life as a was a producer of many Ian and Sylvia albums in Canada, was one of the top studio musicians in all of North America. So that was Toby. And Toby became our music director and died of an overdose. And so we erected, and it's still there, in Roncesvalles United Church, a stained glass window of Toby at the piano. And I said at Toby's funeral, we're probably the only church in the world that has a stained glass window of a trans person in their sanctuary. And because the evening service folk were very live and interactive, somebody yelled out, yeah, but what about Joan of Arc? Yeah. And I would point out, what about the picture, kind of classic picture of the Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, which we see all the time, but we never really look at, we never really see. The figure of John, the disciple that Jesus loved, the disciple sitting right next to Jesus, always presented as feminine. Why? Very interesting. Now we know that Leonardo was gay. We know that now, but we didn't probably know that as we were all gazing at that picture that graces sanctuaries all over the world. So again, trans and queer folk have been with us since the beginning of time. And when I do a little longer talk, I go into, how scripture has been completely misread in that regard. But to get back to political life, so one of the first bills that, in fact, I believe it was the first bill that I introduced when I was elected was Toby's Law, which would add trans rights to the Ontario Human Rights Code. And people thought we were crazy, including my own party. There were only 10 of us in the NDP back then in the entire House. I had zero power. My back was to the wall. But I thought, well, if I can get somebody from the other parties just to agree with this, that bill was introduced 5 consecutive times over many years, 6 years to be exact, before it was finally passed with a conservative and a liberal signing on, which was the only way I could get it done. And to this day, I am so glad I had a conservative sign on to that bill, because the last bill that I introduced that was passed was demanding that everyone at Queen's Park stand for a minute of silence when we honor November 20th, the Trans Day of Remembrance. And that is right before question period, when they all are supposed to be in the House. And to this day, I go back on November 20th, or the date closest to the House is sitting, and witness them all standing, and then witness each party speaking for 5 minutes about why trans rights is essential, and even more essential today, all parties. So there's that. That was the first of many bills that I managed to get passed using the tri-party method. One of the ones that I'm known for is that was the first in Canada, by the way, of a major jurisdiction, and the first in North America, first trans rights in 2012 in a major jurisdiction in all of North America. In 2015, we passed the first in Canada banning conversion therapy bill. That both of these bills eventually were taken up by the federal government. And the banning conversion therapy, that saved lives. That's why we got it done. And that, amazingly enough, I managed to get done on my own by then. That was the last bill that I passed. Before the Trans Day of Remembrance. So that was the last trans bill I passed before that, which was my last bill. And they, the goodness of their hearts, the Liberal majority government said, yes, let's get it done. And let's get it done now, because they recognized how many lives that bill would save. Conversion therapy, trying to coax, queer kids into being straight, has resulted in, as you can imagine, many, many deaths from depression and suicide, and still does around the world. Now in Canada, sadly, it still goes on, even though it's against the law for minors, but they just call it something different. So we're trying to fight to enforce that. There were other bills, of course, PTSD as a workplace injury for first responders, brought to me by an out lesbian paramedic. eventually covered everyone who is a first responder, eventually covered police, firefighters, a number of people, prison staff, and I hope will extend itself to cover all those in workplaces that take a risk. So that was another one. There was a bill, the first in many, many years, to increase the minimum wage, which was a huge labor success across Ontario. And the point of all of this is this was not just me. This is not just me. I like to think this was the spirit at work in the world. I like to think, and I maintain, that here's what it takes to change laws. It takes, a real army of lovers, as Rita Mae Brown once said in a famous quote, an army of lovers will not fail. And she was talking about queer rights. An army of lovers will not fail. And that is true about every great social movement. So to your principle, which we're celebrating, that is true. So all it takes is one person with a little bit of power in parliament, any government, who simply won't stand down and who stands on the shoulders of an army of lovers to get any principle of social justice enacted in law. And of course, we know that's only the beginning, because you have to then fight to keep it so. So all the rights that we have fought for, all the rights that are currently we're seeing being undermined in countries in the world, we got to fight those fights again. And it takes that combo package. It takes the people in the streets. It takes the people affecting those in elected office. It takes those in elected office. It takes that combination. And then, of course, all of our artists, and which you have many, obviously, from your incredible music and your congregation. It takes all of our artists. It takes all of those people who make it part of the call of their lives to do this, no matter what profession they are in. Don't let the racist joke go by. Don't let the misogynist comment go by. Don't let misunderstanding about queers and trans folk go by without not being confrontational, but without challenging in a loving way those opinions that need to be challenged. We should, all of us, be speaking across aisles right now in our lives, whether it's a relative, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's somebody in the riding in which you live that, has, not gone along with the great cause of human rights in all its facets. We need to be talking to those people. We can't just be preaching to our own. We can't just be talking to each other. We're convinced. Now we need to take that word and take it out there. So to go back to the very beginning of what I was talking about, and that was where I was in history, frightened for my life as a child that I would never grow up because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, guess what, folks? We're no farther away from a nuclear holocaust now than ever. In fact, we're closer. We're no farther away from a climate crisis. In fact, we're closer. But I'm a dinosaur. I'm 75 years old, and I'm still alive and kicking, right? So, I mean, I'm saying that I, in my very person, and many of my generation, are the hope. And now we're passing it on, and I see so much hope in those that are younger. I am not cynical at all about the chances of the world. I'll leave with one final thought, and that is AI, the current, thing that we're all frightened of. And quite frankly, I just had a minor operation, nothing major, don't worry. But I said to my surgeon, I said, I hope you're using AI. And he said, of course I am. He said, I started as a coder before I went to medical school. I said, hallelujah, that's hundreds of thousands of second opinions. Thank you. So AI has its uses. The horse has left the barn. That's technology. But here's the secret to AI. And here it is, folks, that AI can't exist without water and minerals, the very stuff of creation, that there's not enough water in the world to fuel AI and us. So think about that. And my bet's on us, my bet's on this incredible capacity that we have, we and others like us. and of course, the work of the Spirit among us, because we don't do this alone. We're powered by love, right? We're powered by love. And that incredible creative juice that is creation, that we are a part of, that is our ally here. And so I have nothing but incredible positivity. I am the girl that's glass half full. And part of it is looking out upon you this morning, this day in Toronto in 2026, in the midst of a snowstorm, so I can't be with you. Just like spring comes, so will a change in the fortunes of our world. Amen and thank you.
Now, thank you very much, Cheri, for that very inspirational and talk, just showing us that we can be our own hope, just all together as a human chain and a human pyramid or a human wall. It's now my pleasure to invite Gwen Showerty up to facilitate our meditation.
Thank you. I'd like to invite you to, can you hear me okay? I'd like to invite you to sit in a comfortable way where you can be quiet for a few minutes. And start to tune into your breathing. Just putting your attention on some place where you can feel the breath coming in and going out. If you can, practice letting go of worry, preoccupation, busyness of the mind. This is a guided practice that comes from the work of Joanna Macy, one of the creators of the Act of Hope work. We have an Act of Hope group starting in a couple of weeks. I invite you to consider joining us. So imagine as you breathe in, think of some area of pain in the world. For me today, it was reading about Minneapolis. Take your pick, there are many. And breathing in that pain as if it's along a ribbon that flows into your heart and comes around through the heart and it circles around. And as you breathe out, let go and release that pain, that worry, that stress, that anger. Release it to the land, a tree, a forest, the divine. And so because there's 2 or 3 different parts to this, it can take a bit of the doing, the practice of it to make it feel like it's flowing. Breathe in that pain, that experience along a ribbon into the heart. It cycles through. Breathe out and release it to something transcendent, something beyond our human egoic self. And so I'll be in silence for a little bit to let you practice that imagining and breath work. at any point, if it starts to feel like there's tension building or you're getting busy inside with it, come back to simply observing the breath. In time, perhaps one can toggle between these two approaches. And so, in a gradual way, bring yourself back to the external, the sense of the external around you. And know that you can use this practice when it gets to be too much, when it's hard. It can allow us to carry on and feel a joining with something beyond us. We can be in the midst of the too muchness and find a way to be with it and move through it. Thank you.
This is a candle for a Unitarian. Reverend Ernest Pipes Jr., who conducted the first same-sex ceremony in the Community Church of Santa Monica, California in 1957. Obviously not a legal one, but still very important. Is there anyone in the sanctuary or on Zoom that would still like to have a candle lit? If you're on Zoom, just quickly write something in the chat, and Pete will read it out. No one else in the sanctuary? Okay. Then I offer this final candle for all the joys and concerns that remain silent but yet burn brightly in our hearts.
We're going to sing together. And I bring the introduction of the song that we're about to sing to you by our own minister, Reverend Sally Fritchie, who is right now working for the Mississauga UUs, delivering a message there for them this morning. I asked her if she'd write an intro for this song today. So these are her words. Last week, a call went out for clergy to join in a day of action in Minneapolis, where the U.S. government is terrorizing its people. Over 1,200 clergy responded, and more than 200 of those were UUs. On Friday, just one day before Alex Preddy would be murdered, those clergy were marching, protesting, blocking traffic, and being arrested alongside the people of Minneapolis. My heart is finding new ways to break every day. And I am proud of my friends and colleagues on the front lines and inspired by the everyday people who are showing up for one another in full knowledge that their bodies and lives are on the line. This next song is one that has been sung in the streets in Minneapolis. You can hear it in the background of some of the videos that are coming out of that city this past week. And today we sing it in solidarity with all those who are holding on to hope, holding on to each other in the face of violence and fear. May they and we heed the calls all around us, show up for our neighbors, and hold on. So we could rise. There's just 4 lines to this song. I'll do it once as a call and response with you, and then we can sing it a few times together. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. My dear ones. My dear ones. Here comes the dawn. Here
We have given to our spiritual baskets to help our spirits grow and grow in justice. But now we come to a time where we have to add to other baskets. The baskets that hold the money to help our congregation grow, pay our salaries, and help our programs thrive and keep this building steady and strong. If you give in the baskets with the manila envelopes you find in the backs of your chair, thank you very much. Or if you give checks or e-transfers, thank you very much for that. And if you're on Zoom or have your phone with you, you can go to the link to our donation page. And there's even I believe we have a QR code that's displayed as well. All offerings are great. If you found home here, if you have found spirit here, if you had found kindred souls here, let this offering be a great to our greater founding, greater future, and our greater good. And now I pass it over to Peter Marmarick for the life of the community.
Thank you, Kurt. We have many things happening which are mailed out on Mondays and on display in the Cappuccino Room. Here's a sampling of some of what's going on. Today, in our galleries to both sides, you can meet the artists and see a wonderful new show. The Act of Hope small group, if you're concerned about contemporary issues, you might want to join this group that meets Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9:15. There's a sign-up sheet available in the Cappuccino Room, or you can email. There's an annual budget meeting where we'll look at our budget on February 1st after service next week at 12:30 p.m. If you're interested in joining as a member, there's 2 steps. Part 1, you can meet next Sunday as well after coffee hour, and part 2, you can get on the Sunday thereafter a tour of this building, including little-known things like the bowling alley downstairs. Our first open mic of 2026 is Saturday, February 7th, taking place here. No sign-up required, just show up. Bring a snack to share, everyone is welcome, and it's hosted by Allison. Silent No More puts on a virtual tour of the Mohawk Institute Indian Residential School, facilitated by a cultural interpreter and followed by a Q&A. That's Tuesday, February 10th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. A warning of deep fakes. If you get an email from Reverend Sally asking you to buy gift cards, it's not real. If there's a sense of urgency and time pressure, it's asking you not to reach out or discuss it with anyone and asking for secrecy, it's a fake. And that's been happening in the States. It hasn't happened yet to us, but it well might. It did happen. Ooh. Next Sunday, post-DEI, how do people of faith respond? The speaker is Kofi Hope, who's we've been gifted with before. Music from the Spirit Choir, Service Weaver Gordon Thorne, and Time for All Ages by Reverend Sally. Check the screen in the Cappuccino Room on your Friday weekly emails for more announcements and information and opportunities to connect. There's a QR code there that you can sign up for the weekly newsletter. Kurt, back to you.
And now, if you would, please raise and body your spirit for our final song.
This song is written by Holly Neer on the occasion of Harvey Milk's assassination. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Gentle, loving. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are queer and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are queer and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
This is always a bit of a sad moment because we're heading towards the end of our time in service and in spirit, but not in our end of our time in our community. I ask Hope and Emily to please come and extinguish our chalice. We have a tradition here at Neighborhood to form a circle. And now we head to the time where we open the circle we cast earlier and head back into our lives. I turn it over to Reverend Cheri to offer some closing blessing. Cheri? Okay. Off the cuff. I bless each and every one of us with a strong heart to make our world better. I bless each of us with a strong heart to make each person better. I bless each of us with a strong heart to see tomorrow with a bright smile and a face forward. Our service is ended. Go in peace and love and joy.